Hello and welcome to Deep Dives Daily.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this right now, I have a feeling I know exactly the kind of person you are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you are probably the kind of person who reads a headline about a massive political crisis,
Right.
a sudden change in government, and while everyone else is just gossiping about the personalities involved, you're sitting there thinking, wait, can they actually do that?
Right. It is the curse of the curious mind. You want to see the machinery, not just the paint job.
Exactly. You want to know the rules of the game. And that is exactly what we do here. We take a massive stack of sources, articles, dense academic notes, research papers, and we distill them into something you can actually use.
And today we are tackling something that feels like it should be incredibly simple, but is actually a total labyrinth of legal paradoxes.
Yeah, today's deep dive is all about the Prime Minister of India.
It is so good to be back for this one, because this is one of those topics where everyone thinks they know the answer until you ask them a highly specific question. I mean, we all know who the Prime Minister is. But if I asked you, what legal mechanism actually puts them in that chair? Or what specific constitutional article gives them the power to fire a minister, most people would just draw a blank.
I certainly did, before reading through this stack of notes. We are basing today's deep dive on some very detailed excerpts from Indian Polity, specifically focusing on Chapter 19. And honestly, the more I read, the more I realized that the office of the Prime Minister is constructed almost entirely on, I don't know, trust me, bro vibes, rather than hard-coded text.
That is a very modern way of describing British parliamentary conventions. But you are not entirely wrong.
So let's start at the very top. The notes highlight this fundamental distinction right out of the gate. We have a president and we have a prime minister. Now, in the U.S., that is just one guy. So why do we need two? And the text uses these Latin terms, de jure and de facto.
Yes, this is the core paradox of the Indian executive. If you read the Constitution, literally, I mean, just the raw text, it sounds like the president is the king. The president is the de jure executive. That translates to by law. Technically, every single executive action is taken in their name. They are the head of the state.
Okay, so de jure is like the person whose name is on the lease of the apartment.
Yes. But the prime minister is the de facto executive. That means, in fact, or in reality, they are the head of the government.
I was trying to come up with an analogy for this because head of state versus head of government can feel a little bit abstract to people. The notes mention the president represents the dignity of the nation, while the PM represents the administration.
Think of it like a massive corporation. The president is the chairman of the board. They cut the ribbons. They sign the annual report. They represent the company's image to the world. They carry a lot of prestige.
Right.
But the prime minister is the CEO.
The one who is actually running the meetings and firing people.
Exactly. The chairman reigns. The CEO rules. And that distinction is vital because if you confuse the two, you completely misunderstand how power flows in India.
Makes sense.
Our mission today is to essentially ignore the chairman for a moment and look exclusively at the CEO. We want to decode the acts and articles that build that office from the ground up.
And this is exactly where I hit my first wall in the research. I was looking for the instruction manual for picking a prime minister. I fully expected Article 75 to be this 10-page document detailing exactly how the election results translate into a job offer.
But it's not there.
It is shockingly brief. It is practically a haiku. Article 75 simply says, and I quote, "The Prime Minister shall be appointed by the President." That is it. Full stop.
That is the beauty and, quite frankly, the terror of the Constitution. It leaves the how completely open.
But hold on. If I take that literally, the Prime Minister shall be appointed by the President. Does that mean the President can just pick anyone? Could the President wake up, look out the window, see a guy walking his dog and say, "Hey, you are the Prime Minister now"?
If you are looking strictly at the text of Article 75, yes.
Wow.
There is absolutely no written qualifier in that specific sentence saying the president must pick the winner of the election.
That seems incredibly dangerous.
It would be if we didn't have the parliamentary system layered on top of it. This is where conventions come in. We borrowed the British system, and with it, we borrowed their unwritten rules.
Okay.
The most ironclad convention is that the president must appoint the leader of the majority party in the Lok Sabha.
Okay, so that is the safety valve. If Party A wins 300 seats, the president is basically just a rubber stamp. They have to pick the leader of Party A.
Correct. In that specific scenario, the president has zero discretion. They are just following the script.
But
There is always a but.
what happens when the script runs out? What happens in a hung parliament?
Right. This is a scenario where no single party crosses the halfway mark.
Exactly. Imagine the Lok Sabha is totally fractured. No one has a clear majority. Now, the president's role shifts from a ceremonial rubber stamp to a very crucial decision maker. The text says in this situation, the president exercises personal discretion.
Personal discretion. That phrase makes me a little nervous. It sounds like they can play kingmaker. They can, and they have. But even that discretion has developed a sort of standard procedure over time. Usually, the president calls the leader of the largest single party or the largest coalition and says, "I am appointing you prime minister."
But they don't just hand them the keys and hope for the best, right?
No. This is the critical part. They appoint them, but with a condition. The president asks them to seat a vote of confidence in the House within a set time.
Usually about 1 month.
Yes, usually 1 month.
So it's like a probationary hiring. You've got
Right.
the job, but you have 30 days to prove you can actually herd the cats and get everyone to agree.
Precisely. And we have a fascinating historical example of this right in the source material. It points to 1979. This was really the first time this discretion was tested on the national stage.
This was right after the emergency era, right?
Yes. The Janata Party government, which was led by Morarji Desai, had just collapsed. It was a very messy time in Indian politics. Lots of infighting, defections, total chaos, really.
So Morarji Desai resigns.
He resigns. Now, President Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy is sitting there with a vacant prime minister's chair and absolutely no clear majority in the House.
So Reddy couldn't just follow the majority party rule because there literally wasn't one.
Exactly. So he used his personal discretion. He appointed Charan Singh, who was a coalition leader at the time. He basically said, "Okay, you seem to have a shot at this. I am appointing you."
Did Charan Singh actually survive the vote of confidence?
He didn't even face it. He resigned before the vote could take place because he realized very quickly he didn't have the numbers.
Wow.
But the precedent was set. The president can pick a leader before the majority is proven on the floor.
That distinction is huge.
Mm.
But reading further, there's a much darker scenario than just a messy election. The notes call it the sudden death scenario.
Yes, this is the grim reality of statecraft. We like to think of successions as planned events, elections, campaigns, inaugurations. But what happens if a prime minister dies in office?
The example provided in the text is 1984, the assassination of Indira Gandhi.
That was a moment of profound national crisis. Indira Gandhi was assassinated on October 31st, 1984. The country was in total shock. There was a huge potential for massive instability.
And the president at the time was Zail Singh.
Right. Now, up until that exact moment, the convention, the polite way of doing things, was that if a PM died, you appointed a senior minister as a caretaker prime minister.
Just someone to keep the seat warm for a few weeks.
Exactly. Just to keep the seat warm while the ruling party met, grieved, and formally elected a new leader.
Like a substitute teacher. You don't make the substitute the principal. They are just there to keep order.
That is a perfect analogy, and that had actually happened before. When Nehru died and when Shastri died, Gulzari Nanda served as the caretaker both times.
Right.
But in 1984, Zail Singh threw that entire convention out the window.
What did he do?
He didn't appoint a caretaker at all. He immediately amended Rajiv Gandhi Indira's son as the full prime minister.
Wait, before the Congress Party had even elected him leader?
Yes, that is the key detail here. Zail Singh saw the crisis, saw the need for immediate, decisive leadership, and used his personal discretion to appoint Rajiv Gandhi directly.
That sounds vaguely undemocratic, doesn't it? I mean, shouldn't the party decide who their leader is first?
It was certainly bold. Now, later on, the Congress Parliamentary Party did meet, and they unanimously elected Rajiv Gandhi as their leader, which essentially validated the president's choice.
Right.
But for those few hours, the president made the call on his own.
So does that mean a president could do that today? If a PM dies tomorrow, can the president just pick the son or daughter and say, "You're next"?
Well, the Delhi High Court actually weighed in on this later, and the conventions have tightened up quite a bit.
Okay, good.
The current understanding is this. If the ruling party immediately elects a new leader after the death, the president has no choice. They must appoint that person. The president's discretion only kicks in if the party is fighting or paralyzed.
So the party has to be incredibly quick. If they snooze, the president chooses.
In a manner of speaking, yes.
I want to circle back to something you mentioned in the Charan Singh example because it blew my mind. You said he was appointed before he proved his majority. This brings us to what I am calling the majority first myth.
Yes. This is a very common misconception.
I think most listeners, myself included, naturally assume the order of operations is: Step 1, get the signatures of majority MPs. Step 2, show those signatures to the president. Step 3, get appointed.
That seems entirely logical, doesn't it? Prove you have the job before you get the paycheck. But a 1980 Delhi High Court ruling totally turned that on its head.
What exactly did they say?
They ruled that the Constitution does not require a person to prove their majority in the Lok Sabha before their appointment as prime minister.
So the sequence is officially reversed.
Yes. Step 1, the president appoints the PM. Step 2, the PM proves the majority within a reasonable period.
That feels incredibly risky. It is like marrying someone and saying, I'll find out if I actually love you in about 30 days.
It is a bit of a gamble. But think about the alternative. If you demanded absolute proof first, you might have weeks of intense horse trading and instability while the country essentially has no government.
Oh, I see.
This way, you put a captain on the ship immediately, and then you ask them to assemble the crew.
And looking at the list of prime ministers who went through this exact route, it is not a small list.
No, it is highly significant. We mentioned Charan Singh in 1979, but there was also VP Singh in 1989, PV Narasimha Rao in 1991, A.B. Vajpayee in 1996, and then again in 1998.
Wow.
Basically, the entire coalition era of Indian politics relied entirely on this mechanism.
It's amazing how these loopholes, or maybe we should call them features of the Constitution, are what kept the government running during those really unstable decades.
They are definitely features. They were designed specifically to prioritize continuity of the state.
Speaking of features, here is the one that really threw me for a loop. I call it the stranger in the house rule. We all assume the PM has to be an elected official, but the notes say maybe not.
This is one of the most surprising aspects for people who are familiar with other democracies. In 1997, the Supreme Court had to settle this highly specific question.
Okay.
Can a person who is not a member of either the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha be appointed prime minister?
Meaning, can you take a random CEO or a general or just a really smart professor off the street and make them PM?
The Supreme Court said yes.
That is absolutely wild.
And this is a massive, but there is a clock ticking. They can be appointed, but they must become a member of either house within 6 months.
Okay, so it is strictly a 6-month grace period.
Exactly. If
Okay.
they fail to get elected to either the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha in those 6 months, they immediately cease to be prime minister. They lose the job.
Have we actually seen this happen at the national level?
Mhm.
Or is it just a theoretical rule?
We see it much more often with chief ministers in states, but it definitely applies centrally too. PV Narasimha Rao, when he was appointed in 1991, was not a member of parliament at that exact moment. He had to scramble to get elected quickly.
It really emphasizes that the executive need for leadership overrides the immediate need for representation. It's like, lead now, get elected later.
That is a great way to put it.
And there is one more major structural difference from the British system that the notes highlight here. In Britain, the prime minister must be from the House of Commons, right? The lower house.
Yes, that is a very strict convention in the UK. The logic is that the PM must be directly elected by the people. They absolutely cannot come from the House of Lords.
But in India,
In India, the Constitution and the Supreme Court has backed this up, allows the Prime Minister to come from either house. You can be from the Lok Sabha, the lower house, or the Rajya Sabha, the upper house.
that feels like a pretty significant deviation from the democratic ideal, doesn't it? The Rajya Sabha members aren't directly elected by the public. They are elected by state assemblies.
It is a deviation, yes, but it allows the system to tap into talent that might not be suited for the rough and tumble of a massive general election campaign.
And we have had some very prominent PMs from the Rajya Sabha over the years.
Oh, absolutely. Indira Gandhi was a member of the Rajya Sabha when she first became PM in 1966. Dev Gowda in 1996. And, of course, Manmohan Singh.
Right.
He served for 10 years, 2 full terms, as a member of the Rajya Sabha. He never won a direct Lok Sabha election while he was prime minister.
That really changes how you view the concept of a mandate. You can run the entire country for a decade without ever having your name on a ballot box that the general public touches.
You can, as long as your party or coalition has the majority in the lower house, your personal seat can comfortably be in the upper house.
So we have established how you get the job. Appointment by the president, proving numbers later, maybe not even being an MP at the start. Now let's talk about the job itself.
Let's do it.
The notes use this fantastic metaphor from Lord Morley. He described the prime minister as the keystone of the cabinet arch.
I love that image. Do you know how a traditional stone arch works?
I'm certainly not an architect, but I know the keystone is that wedge-shaped stone right at the very top center.
Right. The arch is made of many stones. Those are your ministers. They hold the weight. But the keystone locks them all into place. If you remove a side stone, say, a minister of textiles suddenly resigns, what happens?
You just have a hole in the wall, you patch it up.
Exactly. The overall structure remains completely intact. But if you pull out the keystone,
The whole thing collapses.
that is the prime minister. If the prime minister resigns or dies, it does not just create a vacancy, it dissolves the entire council of ministers. The government effectively ceases to exist.
It creates a vacuum.
A total vacuum. The other ministers cannot function. They cannot sign papers. They cannot make policy. Their very existence as ministers is constitutionally tied to the life of the prime minister.
That is a terrifying amount of leverage to hold over your colleagues.
It is. H.J. Lasky, another prominent political scientist mentioned in the text, put it even more dramatically. He said the prime minister is central to its formation, central to its life, and central to its death.
So when we say things like the Modi government or the Manmohan Singh government, we aren't just using media shorthand. We're describing a very real constitutional reality. The government is them.
Correct. And this immense leverage extends to how the cabinet functions day to day. We often hear about cabinet reshuffles.
Yeah, usually when the evening news says someone got demoted or promoted.
That is entirely the prime minister's playground.
Yep.
The president formally appoints ministers, yes, but the president can only appoint people the PM explicitly recommends. The PM is the ultimate gatekeeper.
So if I want to be the foreign minister, I don't need to impress the president at all. I need to impress the PM.
100%. And the PM decides your portfolio. They can move you from the high-profile finance ministry to a smaller ministry like culture, or vice versa, on a whim.
And what if I disagree with the PM? What if I am the finance minister and I think the PM's economic plan is total garbage?
Then you have two choices. You agree or you resign.
I can't just stay and fight my corner.
Not really. The prime minister can just ask you to resign. And if you dig your heels in and say, no, I am staying, the PM can simply advise the president to dismiss you. And as we know, that advice is binding.
So the PM can literally fire me via the president.
Yes. The concept of collective responsibility means the cabinet must speak with one single voice. And that voice is tuned entirely by the prime minister.
This is a perfect segue into the Acts and Articles section.
Yeah.
We promised you, the listener, that we would dig into the specific code that runs this machine.
Yes, the bedrock of the executive.
The notes highlight table 19.1 from the source, and there are three specific numbers that just keep coming up. Article 74, Article 75, and Article 78.
These three form the golden triangle of the executive. If you understand these three, you understand exactly how the power structure operates.
Let's start with Article 74. I'm looking at the text here. It says, there shall be a council of ministers with the prime minister at the head to aid and advise the president.
Aid and advise. It sounds so gentle, doesn't it? Like a polite suggestion box. Hey, Mr. President, maybe we should sign this law.
Right. It sounds totally optional. But in legalese, it means something else.
It essentially means order. The 42nd and 44th constitutional amendments made this crystal clear. The president must act in accordance with this advice.
Is there any wiggle room at all? Can the president say, you know, I think this is a terrible idea?
There is a tiny, tiny sliver of wiggle room. The president can ask the council to reconsider their advice once. They can send the file back and say, are you absolutely sure about this?
But if the council sends it back and says, yep, we are sure,
then the president has to sign it. They have no absolute veto power. This effectively makes the PM the real ruler. Article 74 is the chain that binds the president to the PM's will.
Okay, so Article 74 controls the president. Now let's look at Article 75. Yeah. We talked about the appointment part, but there is another massive clause here. The Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the House of the People.
This is the accountability clause. House of the People is the Lok Sabha. Collectively responsible means they swim or sink together.
So if the Lok Sabha passes a no-confidence motion, they can't just target and fire the one minister they hate.
No. If a no-confidence motion passes, the entire government falls. The PM and every single minister must resign immediately. This ensures that the executive is always strictly a servant to the legislature.
It is a brilliant checks and balances thing.
Yeah.
The PM controls the president through Article 74, but the parliament controls the PM through Article 75.
A perfect summary.
Now, what about Article 78? This one seems less about raw power and more about, I don't know, paperwork.
It is about communication. But in government, communication is power. Article 78 defines the PM's duty toward the president. It is the formal bridge between the head of state and the head of government.
The text lists three specific duties under this article. Clause A is to communicate all decisions. Clause B is to furnish information. And Clause C is to submit matters for consideration. Let's break those down.
Clause A is very simple. The PM cannot keep the president in the dark. If the cabinet decides to, say, declare a war or change a major tax law, the president must be told. The PM is the sole channel for that.
And Clause B, furnish information the president calls for.
This gives the president the constitutional right to be nosy. The president can say, I am hearing rumors about a massive scandal in the telecom industry. Send me the files. The PM is constitutionally obligated to send them.
That seems like an important check. The president might not be able to stop the decision from happening, but they have the absolute right to know what's happening.
Exactly. As Walter Bagehot famously said about the British monarch, it is the right to be consulted, the right to encourage, the right to warn. The Indian president has those same rights.
Now, Clause C is the tricky one. Let me read this carefully. If the president requires to submit for the consideration of the Council of Ministers any matter on which a decision has been taken by a minister but which has not been considered by the Council, that is quite a mouthful.
Let me translate that into a real-world scenario. Imagine you have a totally rogue environment minister, and this minister decides, completely on his own, to ban all diesel cars in Delhi starting tomorrow. He just signs the order.
Absolute chaos ensues.
Right. The prime minister and the rest of the cabinet don't even know about it yet, but the president sees this order come across his desk for formal approval. Under Article 78, Clause C, the president can hit pause and say to the PM, hey, this looks huge. Your environment guy did this alone. I want you to take this back to the full cabinet and vote on it as a group.
Oh, I see. It prevents a single minister from bypassing the team.
Exactly. It reinforces the core concept of collective responsibility we just talked about. It ensures the prime minister is actually in charge of his team and aware of what they are doing.
It's amazing. 74, 75, 78, just three numbers, but they basically map out the entire flow of power in New Delhi.
They do. And you will notice none of them mention anything about a political party. They are purely about the machinery of the office.
Speaking of machinery, let's get into the personal logistics. You get the job. You have the power. What actually happens on day one?
The oaths. Before a PM can enter his office, the president formally administers 2 oaths.
The oath of office and the oath of secrecy. I actually read the text of the oath of office, and it is very noble. Bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution, uphold sovereignty. But the last line really got me. Do right to all manner of people without fear or favor, affection or ill will.
Without fear or favor, that is the ultimate gold standard of public service. It implies that you cannot just govern for the people who voted for you. You are the PM of the whole country.
But why have the separate oath of secrecy? Why isn't that just assumed as part of the job description?
Because the executive holds the literal keys to the kingdom. We are talking about nuclear launch codes, raw intelligence agency reports, upcoming currency demonetizations, budget details that could instantly crash the stock market.
So it is basically a massive country-level NDA.
A constitutionally binding NDA. The PM swears not to reveal any matter brought under his consideration unless it is absolutely required for his duty. You simply cannot have a leaky cabinet. If the cabinet discusses a new tax tonight and it leaks before the morning announcement, insiders could make millions illegally. The secrecy is vital for the integrity of the state.
Now let's talk about job security, or rather, the lack thereof. The term of the prime minister. I naturally assumed it was a fixed 5 years, just like the Lok Sabha.
Technically. No, the term is not fixed at all.
What?
The text clearly states the prime minister holds office during the pleasure of the president.
There is that phrase again, pleasure of the president. It sounds like something straight out of a royal court. You serve at my pleasure.
It does sound incredibly archaic, and if you read it literally, it makes it sound like the president can fire the PM whenever he gets slightly bored.
I'm not pleased with you today. You're fired. Pack your things.
Fortunately, that is not how it works in practice. We have to read pleasure in the context of Article 75. The Supreme Court has clarified this extensively. As long as the prime minister enjoys the majority support in the Lok Sabha, the president absolutely cannot withdraw his pleasure.
So the pleasure is mathematically tied to the majority.
Exactly. The president can't just wake up and dismiss a PM who has 300 MPs actively backing him. However, if the PM loses a vote of confidence on the floor,
then the pleasure is officially gone.
Then the pleasure is withdrawn. The PM must resign. If he refuses to resign, if he stubbornly tries to cling to power after losing the vote, then and only then can the president use his power to actively dismiss him.
Got it. So pleasure of the president is really just polite constitutional code for confidence of the House.
Precisely. It is all about the numbers.
Okay, we have to touch on the one thing everyone is secretly curious about: the money. What does the leader of 1.4 billion people actually get paid?
You might be severely disappointed. It is certainly not a CEO salary. The salary is determined by Parliament, and broadly speaking, the PM gets the exact same salary and allowances as a regular member of Parliament.
Wait, really? There is no special Prime Minister bonus?
Well, there are specific allowances. There is a sumptuary allowance, free accommodation, the famous 7 Localion Marge travel allowances, very high-end medical perks. But the base salary itself is strictly tied to their status as an MP.
The notes have this funny data point from 2001. The sumptuary allowance was increased from 1,500 rupees to 3,000 rupees per month.
Inflation has definitely hit since then. But the principle behind it is important. In the eyes of the payroll department, the PM is just a representative of the people. They are not a monarch entitled to raid the treasury.
I love that. It really grounds the office. But even if the pay is modest, the role itself has become massive. The notes dedicate a whole section to the evolution of the role, and this is where the political texture really comes in.
This is arguably the most fascinating part of the text. The Constitution is essentially a skeleton. The people who inhabit the office put the flesh on it. And over the last 75 years, the shape of that flesh has changed dramatically.
The text quotes Lord Morley again, calling the PM primus inter pares, meaning first among equals.
That was the original classical concept. Imagine a round table. We are all ministers, we all have a vote, I am just the chairman, I am the first, but I am still an equal to everyone else sitting there.
But then you read these other quotes. Sir William Bernard Harcourt called the PM a moon among lesser stars.
A slight shift in perspective. Now the PM is noticeably brighter, bigger, clearly distinct from the others.
And then Jennings comes in and just drops the hammer. He says the PM is a sun around which planets revolve.
That is a total transformation of the office. Now the ministers are just planets. They have no light of their own. They just orbit the PM.
What caused this massive shift? Why do we go from a round table to a solar system?
It is a global trend in parliamentary democracies, but it is very visible in India. It is the shift from cabinet government to prime ministerial government. Think about how elections are run today. When people vote, are they looking at their local MP's track record, or are they voting for the face on the giant poster?
They're definitely voting for the face, whether it was Indira Gandhi in the 70s or Narendra Modi now.
Exactly. The elections have become highly presidential in style. The mandate is deeply personal. If the PM wins the election almost single-handedly, the other ministers know perfectly well they owe their jobs to him. That completely destroys the equals concept. The sun becomes way too bright for the planets to argue with.
Dr. B.R. Ambedkar actually saw this coming during the drafting, didn't he?
He did. He was remarkably prescient. He said very clearly, if you want to compare any Indian functionary to the U.S. president, do not look at the Indian president. Look at the prime minister.
That brings us to a highly specific trend that has really solidified this power: the CM to PM pipeline.
This is one of the most important developments in modern Indian political history. For a long time, the path to the PM's office was strictly through Delhi, being a central minister, a diplomat, a party insider. But lately, the path runs directly through the state capitals.
The notes list 6 specific examples of this. I want to dig into these because they really show how the job description has fundamentally changed.
Let's go through them. It is a very telling list.
First up is Morarji Desai.
The first non-Congress PM. He was the chief minister of the erstwhile Bombay state back in the 1950s. He was known for being a very strict, uncompromising administrator. That CM experience gave him a national reputation for being a tough, no-nonsense ruler, which really helped him when he took the top job in 1977.
Then we have Charan Singh and VP Singh.
Oh, yes, we're from Uttar Pradesh. Leading UP is literally like leading a mid-sized European country in itself. If you can manage the sheer complexity and scale of UP, the logic goes, you can manage India.
Then we have PV Narasimha Rao.
A crucial historical figure. He was the CM of Andhra Pradesh in the early 70s. He was also the first PM from South India. His executive experience was vital because when he became PM in 1991, India was facing a massive existential economic crisis. He wasn't just a political operator. He was an administrator who deeply understood the machinery of government.
Then H.D. Deve Gowda.
From Karnataka. He went almost directly from the CM's chair in Bangalore straight to the PM's chair in Delhi.
And finally, the most prominent example of this entire trend, Narendra Modi.
Yes.
So,
He served as chief minister of Gujarat for 4 consecutive terms, from 2001 all the way to 2014. His entire national campaign for prime minister was built firmly on his record as a chief minister, the famous Gujarat model.
It really seems like the electorate has started to highly value executive experience over legislative experience. They don't just want a debater. They want someone who has actually run a state.
It makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Being an MP is mostly about debating laws and representing a constituency. Being a CM is about building actual roads, managing the police force, handling massive budgets. The prime minister's job is far closer to a CM's job than an MP's job.
Before we wrap up, we have to mention the other hats. Because if you think the PM just sits in cabinet meetings all day, you are very wrong. The list of other formal jobs they hold is completely exhausting.
It is. First and foremost, they are the leader of the lower house. They control the flow of the floor. They advise the president on exactly when to summon the parliament and when to end the session.
And they hold the nuclear option, dissolution.
Yes. The PM can recommend the dissolution of the Lok Sabha at any time. This is a massive political weapon. It basically says, if you don't agree with me, I will dissolve the House and we will all face an election right now. It keeps rebellious MPs perfectly in line.
Then there are all the chairmanships.
Then Ayog, which is the successor to the Planning Commission, the National Integration Council, the Interstate Council, the National Water Resources Council. Basically, if it involves heavy coordination between states or vital long-term planning, the PM sits at the head of the table.
And finally, their role on the world stage.
The chief spokesman. When the PM speaks on foreign policy, it is the definitive voice of India. And in times of severe crisis war, a pandemic, a natural disaster, they are the absolute crisis manager-in-chief. All eyes turn to that one single office.
It is a truly staggering amount of responsibility for one person to hold.
It is. The machinery relies entirely on them.
So let's bring this deep dive home. We have covered a huge amount of ground today.
We really have. We started with the foundational paradox of the president reigning and the PM actually ruling. We decoded the sometimes confusing appointment process, how unwritten conventions like the 30-day confidence vote stepped in to fill the gaps left by the Constitution.
We looked closely at the legal superpowers hidden in Articles 74, 75, and 78. The power to bind the president, the collective responsibility to the House, and the strict duty to communicate.
And we traced the historical evolution from a first among equals model to the solar system model, driven largely by the personality of the leaders and the modern shift towards executive-style elections.
Which leaves us with a final, somewhat provocative thought to chew on. You asked earlier about the solar system analogy.
Yes.
If the Constitution is designed with so many intricate checks and balances, the president, the parliament, the cabinet, why does it feel like the prime minister is becoming more and more powerful every single decade? Is it a flaw in the system, or is it exactly what the system was designed to do all along?
That is the big question. Article 75 explicitly says the council sinks or swims together. But if the captain is the only one who actually knows how to swim, the crew has no choice but to follow his orders blindly. The structure of collective responsibility might paradoxically be the very thing that creates a one-man show, because if you literally cannot survive without him, you cannot challenge him.
A truly fascinating paradox. The very glue that holds the cabinet together is also what silences it.
Indeed, it is a brilliant, slightly terrifying design.
If you enjoyed this deep dive into the acts and articles of the executive, and you want to understand the machinery of the state without all the academic jargon, please like and subscribe to the channel Deep Dive Daily.
We have plenty more massive stacks of notes to unpack in the future.
Thanks so much for listening, and we will catch you in the next deep dive.